Hey, this is Dave with Taboo Customs. Today we are going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on the 98 TJ behind me. Specifically, we're going to go through and we're going to look at the areas that we're going to grease on this TJ and talk about that a little bit. We're also going to be reviewing a product, and that is the LockNLube lock and grease coupler. This is something, I've kind of been looking forward to looking at. It will actually lock onto the grease zerk and hopefully keep it from coming off. That's one thing that, especially in tight areas, can always be a struggle. So we'll take a look at that, see how it works. Hopefully it'll help us out. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is install our new LockNLube grease coupler. We've got our newer grease guns we bought here. This actually already had a locking coupler on it here. However, in trying to use it, and that's part of the reason we looked at these, is that whenever you have to like tighten it down, like thread it to basically tighten it onto the zerk. Now, if you have an area though where you can't get in there to tighten this, like a U-joint where it's really difficult, it makes it hard to do, and it really doesn't effectively work. Or one of those issues is we use this same grease gun on our robot, which you have to get way down inside in the base, and we had a lot of trouble. We got it tightened up. We had a lot of trouble trying to get it off though. So it's been a little bit problematic. Hopefully this will now help us out, because with this is a push to lock system instead of a thread to lock. Now, reading the back here, fits a standard 1/8 inch NPT hose connection, so should fit pretty much most every grease gun hose out there, standard type anyway. So pull the old one off here. Oh, we will go get some thread sealant here. Now the coupler, and you see here, basically push down on the lever, pushes out, comes with an additional instructions and a couple extra seals and different additional pieces for repair. Let me go up some thread sealant. All right, just like that, we're ready to go. So let's go get under the Jeep and we'll talk about the areas that we're going to grease. So I think I glazed over something that probably some people are wondering as they watch this, and what type of grease should I use? And I'm going to be honest with you about what we use. We use just regular multi-purpose grease from Farm and Home. I know there's probably some people that are going to be like, oh no, you got to use this specific grease, and this grease is greater than this grease. And honestly though, dealing with so many Jeeps over the years, most people don't even grease them. So using multi-purpose grease once a year is better than no grease ever. If you are, like for instance, our robots take a very specific grease. It's very expensive. So you get into precision bearings like that, and yes, there is specific greases that you have to use, but for your Jeep, just a multi-purpose grease for us is sufficient, and that's what we've used for a long time. Now, the areas to grease, obviously the steering is the biggest thing. You've got your upper ball joint. Potentially in some lower ball joints you may have a grease zerk on the inside. However, the TJs are so tight, I can't remember that I've seen one with one in it, but you get to larger axles and you will have those. Of course, each of the tie rod ends, so the passenger side, driver side, your link here where the drag link and the tie rod come together, and then of course your pinion here for the steering. Now, in addition to that, you'll need to check each of your U-joints, and we'll take a look at those with the LockNLube and see if those will actually be able to fit that inside the U-joint. That might be interesting. I'm not sure that we'll be able to, but you'll want to check each of your U-joints for a grease zerk. They may have grease zerks. In addition to that, if you have aftermarket control arms like this, you'll want to check those to see if those have grease zerks. this is one of the things that rarely get greased, honestly. If someone has a Jeep, you know, I've taken apart so many of these where I can tell that nobody has ever greased them, and a lot of them have some issues. Like this one here, you can see there's an issue where you've got this grease circuit points directly at the ground, which is great until the ground comes into contact with it, because you go wheeling and you get something like that where you can't see it because I blocked out the light, but the grease circuit's gone. So let's go ahead and try the grease gun with LockNLube, see how that works. Okay, so LockNLube, we just push down on the little trigger, lock it on. And now we can see that this boot here actually has a crack in it, so the grease is just coming out. So we'll need to replace that. Pull this one off. Looks nice locking it on there. It definitely is on there once you've got it there. Alright, so it works pretty well. I mean, I kind of like it. Definitely doesn't come off, you know, very easily without pulling the trigger. We've of course got some issues just due to the fact that this Jeep probably hasn't had any maintenance. Honestly, who knows when the last time it was actually greased was. But this, you know, does work, you know, pretty darn well. Now, one thing we're going to want to check though is, my big question is, will it fit down inside the small 1310 U-joint and get to that grease zerk? So one question you might have is, you know, how much grease to put in these tie rod ends, you know, and a lot of times you're adding grease until you can see grease come out of one of the areas. Now you do have to be careful because these can, you know, be pretty well sealed sometimes, but as you grease it, you know, especially on these more stock type that are, you know, spongy, you'll be able to see it grow, and then you'll know that you have grease in it. Now on this other one over here, which is actually on the end of the tie rod, which, because this is aftermarket, these are a harder, what looks like urethane, so you're not going to be able to see those move. So in those cases, I definitely would put grease in until we do get an area, looks like at the back, that has grease come out. And if you do, just make sure to wipe that grease off. You don't want it getting all over you whenever you have to get down there, work on your Jeep. So moving back in the Jeep, one of the big areas you're going to want to look at is the drive shafts. Now, you might have grease zerks on your U-joints in your drive shafts. I would say those are really important to get grease. I mean, U-joints are one of the most common failures due to just the use and the stress that they do see. So keeping them greased will definitely keep them alive much longer. But the big question is, will this LockNLube actually fit down inside there? Because, I mean, I can barely get my index finger down there. It does look like it fits, maybe just barely. We are squeezing some extra grease out on the sides, but we did just see this seal on the back of the U-joint move, so it's definitely gotten down in there. But anything any tighter than that, certainly not going to fit in there and really barely fit in there as it is. Now the next area you're going to want to check is also on your U-joints, and that's going to be the slip yoke. Now we've got stock shafts on here. We don't have any grease zerks on these stock shafts, so we won't be able to grease them. And really, even on this Jeep, I think after looking, this is the only U-joint we actually have a grease zerk on. I'll do it for this video, real short video, just kind of showing you some of the areas to look at when you're going in there to grease your Jeep. Looking at the LockNLube coupler as well. That is something that's going to really help us out. We have a lot of equipment, forklifts, saws, our welding robots we have to keep greased, especially on our welding robots. This will be a lifesaver to get down in some of those areas where our other grease coupler was really hard to get down and get on those grease zerks. So thank you for watching. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can comment here on this video. You can contact us on our website or email us at Taboo Customs. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and a like or subscribe is always greatly appreciated. Thank you.